Last year, the Columbia University Press published my new book, Media in the Digital Age. And in that book, I examine the consequences of digitization, the computerization of all these different tools, how we gather news, how we edit it, how we distribute it, how we store it, and how we access it. There's 5 dimensions. How those 5 dimensions are being transformed by the computerization, the microchip into everything of media. And so there are a lot of impacts. There's ways that it changes our lives on a fundamental level in a very positive way. It allows us to participate in media and to become our own storytellers, give our own voice, but at the same time, it challenges our systems of national security. Suddenly we have access to satellites that can see things as small as a meter in size, and we can see them anywhere in the world. Well, there are a lot of national security issues that arise, or privacy questions that can arise when you're shooting video with a camera that sees 360 degrees. Somebody thinks they're not in the field of view, but actually they are, because the camera sees every direction. Well, how do we study that? How do we make sense of that? And how do we inform the public? We need more media literacy. And so this book is in many ways an attempt to provide people with some understanding of the nature, the grammar, the consequences, the implications of meeting the digital age for our lives and how we live. The area that I devote probably the greatest amount of my work is on how the new technologies are transforming the content of journalism and the media, particularly the way we tell stories. Telling of stories is such a fundamental part of the human experience. We all grew up with stories. Our parents would tell us stories, or we'd read stories out of fairy tales, and we'd see them on the big screen, and we love stories. Well, with digital technologies, there are some interesting ways the stories are starting to change on their own. For one thing, on their own, because of things like YouTube and other new media, the storytelling is getting sometimes very short. Just little bits and bites that may only take a few seconds, but that might be enough. Get across a basic point. Maybe all it is some guy who looks crazy dancing in some foreign locale, and millions of people go on the internet to see it. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a perfectly good way to experience something, and people are enjoying it and getting something out of it. At the same time, media have an opportunity to adapt and to start telling stories differently. And I look at what kinds of media are really popular among young people. And one of the most popular forms is the video game. Young people are really engaged, and partly it's because they participate in the story. And the story is interactive, but also the stories are very powerful. They have incredible kinds of narrative structures where you can slay a dragon, or you can, save the planet. Some of the stories aren't so good. You can be a professional car thief or worse. So there's incredible stories, powerful stories, some good, some bad, some in between. Well, when I look at what media could do, media can start making their stories more interactive, and journalism could become more interactive and more participatory. And we've developed a new kind of storytelling that we call the situated documentary. There are variations of this now that are emerging called location-based media or locative media. The basic idea being embedding multimedia stories into the real world, so that when you travel around with your handheld device or you go online onto the internet using, say, Google Earth, you can access stories that are based on where they happened or what they're about, where they are. We've worked on a series of these kind of situated documentaries. If you walk the campus of Columbia University, where I collaborate with some computer science people, you can have a virtual re-experience of some of the past events from Columbia, like the 1968 student strike. Or you can re-experience what it was like back in the days of Colonel Edwin Armstrong when he invented FM radio, or when Enrico Fermi was working on building a nuclear pile at the Columbia University campus. Prior to his starting the Manhattan Project, he enlisted the football team to haul the uranium around in the tunnels under the campus. Well, my students created a situated documentary that you can go virtually down into the tunnels and find out what it was like back then, what it would have been like. And you almost have that experience of your own to draw upon then. So it's like a video game in that sense. And people are responding to those kinds of changes. And so that's the big question for me, is how does the storytelling change? Because I think if we can figure out how to tell the stories, we can really re-engage the citizens, the public, and make our media system a vibrant part of our 21st century rather than a dinosaur.